know much about it, so I'm quite interested. We don't really get any chance in our daily life to get in touch with it, so I feel like it's more like an ancient culture covered with mystery and unscientific rituals.
I had never heard of it. I once seen its Chinese character on mobile game.
I watched some related videos before, and I felt like the atmosphere of that ceremony is a little weird and quaker.
My first impression is just paper, blood, and spiritual things. I felt like it's more like a trade or reified process where humans will hope to sacrifice something in exchange to obtain peace or any personal wishes. A very well-known example is the God of Fortune in China. When people want money, they will specifically go and worship this God instead of the others.
Sometimes I feel a little scared because such theme is also commonly found in complementary Chinese horror films. It's easy to create a frightening atmosphere with some weird ritual under the mysterious religious belief. For example, a horror film that was very popular recently, Psychic, a pseudo documentary, has a really intense religion elements. Women people are used for sacrifice, and these scenes are really disturbing us.
I would imagine like a group of people is dancing strangely and solemnly about like mysterious worlds and providing tributes to their god.
As the organizer of this field research, I had actually come to Shiyou Village last summer. I interviewed the folk artists and villagers and completed my personal research here. But in fact, I've been thinking about a tough question for a while. What's the meaning of promoting Nuo culture among the younger generations? I understand that we should definitely preserve it. Itself revealed the developments of prehistorical folk religion, ancient Chinese dance, and the art of mask carving. And from its regulatory system and various taboos, we could still study the social features of ancient China, such as feudal family control and sexism. But these are all its academic values. Why should we promote it in our modern world? What function will it serve in our contemporary society? I hope that everyone could find a unique answer this time.
I think the environment of Shiyou Village is much better than I imagined. It even struck me as a so-called paradise, because the way living there is potted mud, and the past in the village is actually quite the opposite. I think the most typical decoration in the Shiyou Village would be the paintings of Buddhas on their doorsteps, as if the Buddhas are the belief of the villagers.
The pass of time can be clearly shown by all the building theory, especially Jenny's system and the structure of houses. Apart from that, the villages there are just superimposed. There are no temple in the middle of the village.
It's just like a usual tourist village, and there were billboards telling us the stories behind every memorial.
After wandering in the village, we now come back to the central square and to see the Nuo Dance team's preparation work in front of the temple. At that moment, they were preparing for the first process of the ceremony that night. It's called Nuo, in which performers need to collect all the masks and weapons in the Nuo temple and carry them around the village. The meaning of this process is to ask the surrounding gods to give these masks and weapons divinity. Honestly, I had not expected that there would be so many people here. We saw TV reporters, art society experts, and then many professional photographers. But it still makes sense. Because of the COVID-19, villagers were not allowed to hold the ceremony in the past 2 years, so this opportunity is really precious for everyone.
And their press there for the shooting and interviewing. Even some of our group members got interviewed. And I guess it's safe to say that Nuo Culture is under intensive attention.
I was unexpectedly interviewed by the journalists from Jiangxi TV station, and they were also surprised that a group of senior high school students would be interested in such an ancient sacrificial culture, which further verified the necessity of our actions. Now the Nuo dancing team begins their parade, and we're ready to interview the villagers. One unfortunate fact was that we did not get much useful information from the villagers. The elders spoke with a strong local accent that none of us could understand, and the young villagers that just didn't know much about the local history and details of the culture.
少线
多少岁？你多大了？
哦，2个
你年纪多大了？你年纪多大了？
人家90多岁
90多岁啊！你看上去还好健朗哎。
我都个老玩意儿，我个老玩意儿，我个老辈的老玩意儿，我年轻。
哎，我想问一下老人家，你是这个村子里面最年纪？
富就现在不过来的，你样就那看起啊的。
他说福州新闻都有播。
你是不去买了？
Eventually, we have completely no idea what he was talking about, so we asked for help.
是吧？哇，看上去好健朗。
都不大方便。
那我听说这个过年的时候，就是周边村子的好多人都会来这边看傩。你也是来看傩的吗？
我也是，在亲戚家里吃饭的。
你们也信这个吗？
信的人们都信。现在就是疫情方面，现在就不可以听他跳舞。本来以前很热闹的。
我听说以前他们还会到别的村子里面，就是循环跳，都会去。
现在村子都附近的村子都会去跳的。
您生活在村子里，还是说您平时有去别的城市打工？
没有，现在在老家。没有。
现在老家。
在家里。你们是这过去有6里路。
那还蛮
公里。
那还挺。
He was very kind and friendly and told us many things about himself, but since he was not a native resident of Shiyou Village, he did not know many details about the culture. He recommended that we interview the performers and leaders of the Nuo dancing team, but they were all very busy that afternoon, so we could just interview other villagers.
往年收傩的话是每家每户的收，现在就2个祠堂收一下，还有一个。他们修好了的老房子里面收一下就差不多了。那个房间，一间一间的房间，老房子里面都要收。一般是吗？今年肯定那个地方也有。自古以来，假如说，古老的时候，他们的房间里面闹鬼啊，各种各样的迷信，就为了驱邪，就收一下嘛。住的时候就，反正人的心里怎么说呢，都是，这老爷，保佑我们平平安安。收过之后，他们心里踏实，就这样一直传承下来。
His words confirmed our early online research, but we still didn't get more details. Because the Nuo ceremony would start soon, we just simply interviewed a few other villagers and quickly rushed to the ancestral hall to get a great location. But then we found a potential problem.
我是说什么，我也不太清。
哦。外面不是画了那个面具嘛，然后下面写了那个开箱，我想知道它有什么故事。
这个我就不知道。
We asked several villagers some basic questions about the local history and culture, such as the origin of Nuo culture and the history lying behind the memorials. But to our surprise, many of them, especially young people, said they knew nothing about these things. We believe it is a potential problem that even the locals are gradually forgetting their history and culture.
对语法，我们有点想了解它的历史，不知道可不可以跟我们分享？
我也不知道那个。我不知道那个，都是耗费都不知道。
The problem is very common in rural areas in China. Under the trend of modernization, the young generation who work in town or city has been continuously losing the bond with their cultural background. For folk cultures such as Nuo culture, the trend might be devastating. And don't get me wrong though, I don't think we should blame any individual. But since our mission is to promote the cultures in urban areas, it's worth thinking that how to consolidate the original soil on which the culture was born. Now we are in the ancestral hall and wait to see the performance. Though I've watched online videos and stage shows of Nuo dancing, I've never seen a real Nuo ceremony in person. Last summer in Nuo Temple, the fourth performer from the Nuo dancing team kindly showed me the basic dance movements. But he told us that he just didn't feel right when dancing in his daily outfit at a casual time. So I'm really excited to see tonight's formal show. After a short while, the ancestral hall became extremely crowded, so the performers finally decided to hold the ceremony outside.
I was standing in the third row in the audience. It was so packed since it was the last exorcism show. What's worse, you know what? It was raining that day. So both the performers and audience were having a tough time.
At first I was standing at the top of the auditorium, but later I moved to the third level of it. I tried to get closer to the stage when we were told that there was a game session to teach the audience Nuo dancing movements, but I failed to do so because there were simply too many people. Experts, photographers, journalists, and policemen nearly blocked the edge of the stage. So it was a little pity.
As a photographer, I was standing at the very front of the auditorium. There were a large number of people crowding around.
Unlike the sacrificial activity I imagined, their dance was really storytelling. and I could clearly know what they mean to say in each dance.
Rare, manifold, exhilarating.
Mystical, fantastic, primordial.
After watching the Nuo Ceremony, I feel that the ancient Chinese sacrifices were not scary as the contemporary Chinese movies depict. On the contrary, by witnessing Nuo Dance with my own eyes, I feel the passion, tendency, vitality, the awe of nature, and people's yearning for a better life. As a ceremony to exorcise evil spirits and pray for our blessing, the theme is warm and bright, reflecting the romantic feelings of our ancestors everywhere. This future made me realize the necessity of revising the deception of traditional sacrifice in the files. Through my effort and knowledge of media, I want to use my short film to rectify superficial problem of sacrifice in some contemporary Chinese films and enrich the cultural elements, which may be great help to continuous of Nuo culture and more traditional costumes. It can both show respect for our ancestors and give us a better understanding of what makes us who we are today.
Protecting our culture can enhance our national pride, which contributes to the formation of a peaceful social atmosphere and finally promote the growth of economy.
Sexism. I cannot ignore this as a female. During the research, I was told that women are not allowed to participate and learn Nuo dances. Corrupt customs such as this have not been eliminated from the culture's heritage, but instead are deeply ingrained in the history of Nuo culture. Nuo culture as a microcosm of the Chinese traditional culture as a whole. We explore one branch of the source of preference of men over women. For example, there's a famous Chinese saying that have been passed down even to this day. 女子无才便是德. It means that a woman without any talent is a virtue. But where is the basis of saying that? In the same way that women are not allowed to participate in Nuo dances, there is no any reasonable explanation for it. It is unfair and unreasonable that human activity should be restricted on the basis of gender, because gender is something we're born with, and people's social status, social activity in any kind of social system should not be determined by innate conditions. Culture belongs to everyone, and it is something that should be communicated and progressed.
So the purpose of Nuo culture promotion for you is?
Definitely to let more people have a clear and correct understanding of Nuo culture so that women can participate in Nuo dances and other activities as soon as possible. When people have a clear understanding of the status of a particular group or gender, they will think and know what needs to be changed and what needs to be preserved. I don't mean to erase any history or customs of Nuo culture, but to learn and progress from it, so that people can fight for the human rights that women are entitled to.
I just want to share my feelings that night. At first, I was standing at the highest point of the auditorium and holding my umbrella. Some local kids just naturally hid under my umbrella and leaned on my shoulders to watch the performance. Our eyes reflected the light of the campfire with shared excitement and reverence. I was also impressed by a scene during the fifth opera of the ceremony. What really surprised me was that the crowd voluntarily made way for the kids to run onto the stage. And the little ghost pretended to feed these kids from his own wine, meaning to bring good luck to these kids. Though the mask of the little ghost looks pretty scary because he has long and sharp teeth, but the kids just played around him and giggled. Other audiences were looking at them with kindness and happiness as if they were all these kids' parents. I could also feel the passion and enthusiasm of the performers. Everyone who has watched the casual performance last summer and today's performance could tell the striking differences. His every movement was imbued with power and fervor, with his pride in himself, his love for Nuo Dance, his awe for nature, and his yearning for a better life. It was so infectious that I couldn't help cheering and praying along with the crowd. At that moment, I felt like we, audiences and performers, were all connected with each other. According to Emily Durkheim, pardon for my poor French pronunciation, this kind of special feeling is collective effervescence, the outcome of accumulated group energy. This is the moment when the sense of social unity or commune collectivity is constructed and strengthened. He said, although this was the original function of religious, we need to find new belief systems or cultural systems to strengthen the social cohesion, support social regulation, and reduce egotism under the trend of secularization. And I believe our traditional culture can perfectly fulfill these functions. Though modernity gradually tears younger generations apart, I mean, we have weaker emotional connections, we could still find the lost sense of unity by reviving the traditional culture, which is our nation's collective experience. I believe when we suddenly realize that we, as a people, celebrated a festival, watched a traditional ritual, and shared the same reverence for the nature and hope for a brighter life, just like what I felt during the Nuo Ceremony, we unite as a family, and we become aware and proud of who we are and who we belong with.
Edward Said has said that ideas, cultures, and histories cannot seriously be understood or studied without their force, or more precisely, their configurations of power also being studied. And this is what we are doing now. The YFOR is now committed to reviving the silent cultures through the forces of their own intrinsic charms, unduplicated histories, and manifold expressions to the youth who are passionate about humanities and the connotations under them. We also approach bridging connections among different cultures, for example, the local Bhutanese cultures and the local Chinese cultures, to superimpose the forces of our studies. And this is why I established the Qitian Cao, the Bhutan-China Youth Cultural Exchange Seminars. It is one of the bridges we envision for our Oriental Renaissance, to present the marginalized Oriental cultures which should not be marginalized, to find the interconnections between different cultures of the boundless human culture sphere, and to finally wipe out common stereotypes of the cultures as the obsolescent cultures. And finally, being opposite to what Homi Bhabha described, we look forward to a world where when you look at somebody, it is still simply, are you like me or unlike me? Has your culture produced great artists? What are your rituals? But not, is your culture safe or not? Will it produce terrorists?